Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Success Mindset YouTube channel, and we're joined again by our good friend Jeremy Lazarus. Thank you for joining us today, Jeremy.
Thank you, Damien.
So today we're going to be looking at the mindset for success, which quite aptly is very, very close to the book that you're writing, Jeremy. And I know that is all about success mindset and how people can move towards that.
Yeah.
So I guess my first question for you is, how do you define success? If you're working with someone, how do you define success?
Okay, so essentially I've just done the first chapter actually, and that is basically what the first chapter is about. I think for me, success is whatever it means to my client. So it's whatever really moves, touches and inspires my client, what they want to be, do and have, their version of success. So I'm not a religious guy at all, but I was doing some searches on the internet, and there's a quote from the Bible which says something like, "What shall it profit a man if he gains the world but loses his soul?" So it's important that, and I think Shakespeare says something like, "Unto thine own self be true." And so I think for me, success is about what the person really wants to achieve, what's going to make him or her fulfilled in their life.
And you know, I think I probably already know the answer to this, but with success, how important is it for the person to be able to name it and define it? You know, if you've got someone that's very woolly and they can't really tangibly define what they want as an outcome, would you say that limits their chance of going towards that success in the end?
I think they need to know enough to let them know which direction to go in, whether they're on track, and if they're not, then obviously they can get back on track. So whether they put it in exact words or whether it's more of a feeling, you know, I don't want to get too hung up, but I think people need to know enough about what it is they want that they can set their intention, work towards it, and know if they're on or off track.
When you work with different people, you know, the elite athletes or the different businesses at various different levels, what would you say are the main barriers and sabotages? You know, because people self-sabotage.
Yeah.
What would you say are the main barriers that you come across for people?
I would say the key ones are, there's two really. One, not taking full responsibility for your life, making excuses. And the other one is limiting beliefs. What do I mean by limiting beliefs? These are beliefs and the inner thoughts which stop us. So examples of limiting beliefs could be, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve success. People from my background don't achieve success. I had a guy on a course once, I'm just a poor guy from Dagenham. People from my background don't achieve great things.
Yeah.
So those sorts of limiting beliefs can often get in the way. In fact, and I've heard people say you'll only rise to the level of your self-belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess with that, you know, to move forward and build a positive mindset, you know, what you've just said about all these negative beliefs very much fits into the transactional analysis model as well, of sort of negative automatic thoughts and all these things that people will have in their lives. So for people to overcome these limiting beliefs or the barriers and sabotages that they'll put in place, what kind of things can they do to overcome these beliefs?
Okay. There's a few things. The obvious example is to go and speak to someone such as myself or any other really good NLP trainer or practitioner, master practitioner, and or to attend courses or read. What I would say though is to have a purpose that's really compelling, because my guess is that there are parents who, before they had their child or children, didn't believe necessarily that they could support their kids well, or because of whatever, you know, personal beliefs or background they may have had. But the moment they had their child, somehow, because the purpose was so compelling, they found a way to tap into their own resources to do whatever it was they need to do to put food on the table for their kids. So it's about tapping in, I think, to a compelling belief, taking action, being mindful of things that get in the way, internal things that get in the way, internal beliefs, for example, or negative emotions like fear, and addressing it, finding ways to address it, and recognizing that things like a belief is just a thought you keep telling yourself. It's not necessarily the truth.
Absolutely.
You know, and those little cliches, it's important to remind yourself of those. And what's fear? False evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
You know, so it's and to just keep working on yourself as well, examining your own beliefs. There is one other thing which I think is really important, which isn't often spoken about, and it's based on work by a guy called, I think it's Robert Keegan, and I think he calls it hidden competing commitments. Now, in NLP, we call it secondary gain. So basically, if people say they want to do something, but they don't do it, there will normally be something which is competing with the thing they say they want to achieve. And often it could be unconscious, or they may not be aware of it. So I've heard of stories of people who really want to get promoted, but because they come from a background where none of their friends have achieved that level of success, they feel that by achieving success, they'd lose their friends. So that maintaining their friendships would be the hidden competing commitment that could counteract someone's goal of achieving the promotion. Does that make sense, Dan?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's I think it's really important to be aware to examine our own thoughts, and sometimes we need a coach to help us.
Yeah, and we, like you said, self-limiting beliefs and that false evidence appearing real. I laugh because the first time I ever heard that was a previous job I had where we had a guy called Miles Hilton Barber, who is a blind adventurer. And I think he had a degenerative eye condition, and he went blind. He went fully blind, I think, when he turned about 50. And since 50, I think when it first happened, obviously, losing your eyesight's a huge thing. Yeah. And yet this guy has now gone on to set a number of world records. He's the first blind pilot to fly the Atlantic. He's done loads and loads of other amazing stuff. And he was talking exactly like you did about false evidence appearing real, the internal dialogue, and turning that around in your head, reframing it.
I think it's really useful to keep an eye out for people who achieve things against all the odds. You hear these 82, there's, I can't remember, an 82-year-old woman who's between, I think, Cuba and Florida or something like that. There are people who achieve amazing things. So the question is, if they can do it, I can.
Yeah.
And how are they doing it, and what could I learn from them?
And then in terms of, there's so much. We could talk all day about mindset for success, but people will have to buy your book as well.
Well, they could do worse.
But in terms of moving towards, so you define your success, you overcome your barriers and sabotages. Are there any other key takeaways around reaching success that you would want to give the viewers that maybe they could just go away and put into effect?
Yeah. So it's to have a goal beyond the goal. So what can happen for some people is they set a goal, but because there's not a goal beyond it, as they approach achieving that goal, they perhaps think, well, if I've achieved it, what then? So they sabotage themselves. Whereas if they know that beyond this goal, there's something that's equally or even more compelling, then they'll just keep going. So I think one key tip is to keep setting goals, and to set goals which are stretching and challenging. I've read some research when I was researching for my books that said that the goals which are most likely to be achieved are ones which are stretching but achievable.
Yeah.
And I sometimes say, so my training courses, it's better to aim for the stars and only reach the moon than to aim for the sky and get in there. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And I think there's a hell of a lot in that, because when you've got your stretch goals and you're moving beyond, anyone that goes on the path and does execute, I mean, you actually know it's not the destination. Once you're on that path, it's the journey that fulfills you. It's not the destination.
Yes.
People that get to the destination get very, very quickly depressed and all kinds of things. Momentum.
Yeah. And going back to one of the early questions you asked about what is success, I've a definition I sometimes use. It's the progress or journey towards a worthwhile goal.
Yeah. So
the fact that someone is actually taking the steps and doing it, that in itself can be, for many people, that can be a sign of success, because they're actually taking action when most people wouldn't even bother.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for your time today.
Pleasure.
And as we always say when we finish these videos, make your life a masterpiece, my friends. Go out and execute, do what you need to do. Listen to the tips from people like Jeremy. Thank you so much for your time.